Everyone, thanks for joining me for another episode of the Horses Advocate podcast. I have with me today Linda Parelli, a name that's known far and wide, and a gal I've met in the past year or two who we've really connected. And I'm using that word specifically because connection's everything, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Thanks for joining me. One of the biggest things I do wrong is I talk a lot. So I'm going to try to ask some pretty good questions to get this thing going. But the biggest thing I've gotten with you is your ability to connect with horses. And I've followed what you've gotten with your Happy Horse, Happy Life system. And I've listened to what you've said about connecting with horses. And it blows me away because you've been with horses, I think, 30 some odd years. And I've been with horses that long too, actually 50. And it took me 30 years before I figured it out. And it doesn't come, it's not intuitive. It's just you're with them over and over and over again. And we've been trained so well with people to try to change the other person. And we can't change somebody who's bigger than us, faster, stronger. And
Let alone speak a different language.
And I learned slowly. You can say it's because I'm a man. It's all right. I don't mind. But I finally got it. And I realized that I can't change them. All I can do is change me. And as I started to change me and everything about me, the horses suddenly just said, huh? Oh, wow. So tell me how you came about this. Tell me about your role from when you're a little girl and you're on a pony or whatever it is, and the aha moments that came along. So I think a lot of people like to hear that.
Oh my gosh, how long is this podcast?
There's
This has
no
been
end
a long
point.
time. Okay. Well, I was born horse crazy. Don't even know how or why. I was born in Singapore, and my parents are Swiss and Scottish. And so there was no horses around us. And I was just crazy about horses from the get-go. So all my coloring books were horses. All my toys were horses. I was a horse. I had little sticks for my front legs, and I made my sister ride me. And I don't know where it came from. So in Singapore, you know, we weren't surrounded by land and animals, but there were two riding clubs, the Saddle Club and the Polo Club. And I finally pestered my parents enough to let me go and take riding lessons at the Saddle Club. So I did that from the age of 9. And I learned the BHS way, which is the British Horse Society, because Singapore was very connected with England. And when I was almost 12, my family moved to Sydney and Australia. And then I thought, now I can really have a horse. And I just pestered my parents until they bought me a pony. So I was 13 when I got my first pony. He was 12, 2 hands high, little part Arabian, gray, crazy little thing. And I rode him everywhere, you know, bareback and on the beach, and jumped everything in sight. And just, you know, you just ride like a little wild Indian. You have no idea really what you're doing. I had some education from Singapore, but, you know, I just never thought about that. I was just having fun with my pony. And then I started to go into competition at Pony Club, and I decided I needed a slightly bigger horse. So I bought another one, and he and I clashed like crazy. We just fought, basically. And I didn't know what else to do. And finally, I think my horse gave up a little bit, or we found a way to get on together. I don't really know even how that happened. But then I competed with him, had lots of fun. And then I got into business, and for 7 years, I went to university in business, and I couldn't have my horses. And so finally, I decided I couldn't not have horses anymore, and happened to be at the English racehorse yearling sales because I just wanted to go and drool over horses, you know, and ended up buying a racehorse by mistake, a young racehorse. But then I figured, well, that's going to take me, you know, probably 4 or 5 years before he can become mine. And so I went and bought another horse, which was also an off-the-track thoroughbred. And that's the horse that changed my life, because I was in big trouble and I wanted to do eventing. And this horse was so crazy and bolting, huge thoroughbred, that my instructor said, you really need to focus on dressage for a while. And I thought, dressage, how boring can that be? I just want to jump and gallop, you know. So I ended up doing that, and it was so difficult. Um, I I was on the point, really on the point of giving up. And that's when I saw a video of Pat Parelli, who I ended up marrying and helping to change the world. But you never know where your life's going to take you, right?
Right.
So yeah, so I went to a clinic with Pat, and my horse was the worst horse there. I had a near-death experience, but it was the first time that I thought about anything from the horse's point of view. Like, I was not cruel to horses or anything like that, but when I think back, my ignorance was cruel. You know, I wasn't a nasty person, but my horse was confused, and I still used force to some degree, you know, bits and martingales and flash nose bands and all that kind of thing to suppress my horse. But no bit in the world can change a horse's emotions or his opinion of you. And so that was a big wake-up call for me, and that was in 1989. And in 93, I moved to the USA to help Pat change the world and bring these concepts, which became known as natural horsemanship. We actually coined the term. And the whole thing was to make this more accessible to people, because some people knew how to do it. They were just gifted with horses. But if they were gifted, they often didn't know how to teach other people what they knew.
Right.
And that was more my gift, that I'm a teacher. I had to learn everything about horses, but then I could break it down into ways that were easy for people to understand and get good results. So for 30 years, we traveled the world and had huge schools going in Colorado and Florida. And it was an amazing life, and I got to see a lot of things, see a lot of horses, deal with a lot of horses and people, and I learned obviously a lot. And then probably about 15 years ago, 12 years ago, I'm not sure now, I went back to dressage, because I just felt, you know, I really needed a purpose again with my horsemanship. And I was lucky to study with Walter Zettel, who's was an incredible master. And I spent 12 years with him. And that again took my skills and my understanding to a whole new level. And it helped me put natural horsemanship and dressage together, you know, where it's not just, you know, natural horsemanship became a little bit of a discipline in itself. And that was not the original idea. It was more about a philosophy, but, you know, it kind of got its own life. And so when Pat and I divorced 3 years ago, I was looking at all the things that I felt weren't working, that needed to change. And I had a new sense of freedom. And then I could develop a program with everything that I learned from people like Pat and Walter, and as well as some other mentors in my life. And so that's basically it. And I have 2 warm bloods, and I live in a nice little place in Williston.
You sure do.
In Florida.
Yep.
And I have Happy Horse, Happy Life. And I do a little bit of traveling, but a lot of the time I stay here and I do master classes, or I have students come for a week or a month, or interns and proteges that stay for longer. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. So I'd like to focus on the last 3 years, because you say that you're free now. What is it? What was binding you, and what do you see now that's different? Where you've obviously had this growth, and you're teaching. And when I look at your website, which is right over here, I look at your heart, I look at your 10 steps, but at the very bottom, the first step is connection, which is everything. So bring me up to speed. What's going on there?
Well, basically, I was helping Pat to develop his program. And there were areas of it where I felt a little bit stifled and frustrated, because there were things that, especially when it came to teaching people more about training horses, that there were things that I wanted to do, but they weren't his program. And so if he didn't agree with it, then I didn't do it. And so when we separated, I started thinking about all the things that I wanted to introduce, but couldn't. And so basically that's what I did. And when I brainstorm and try to develop something, I use the Disney brainstorming method, which is with little sticky notes. And if you could see my window doors over there, you would see sticky notes on the doors. I'm working on a new project. But yeah, so I put all these sticky notes up, and I like to build programs from the bottom up.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about all the things that people need in order for a horse to be happy and what you need to understand. And I had all these pieces filled in except the very one at the bottom. And I was thinking, you know, maybe it's empathy that is that piece. You know, I've got to start with empathy or compassion. And so I would put it in there, and then I'd live with it for days and look at it. And one day I realized I don't find myself saying to people, you need more empathy or you need compassion, more compassion, because that's my market. They're people who love horses, who are empathetic and who are compassionate. And I thought, what do I tell people when they're having trouble? And 9 times out of 10, it's you don't have a connection. You know, you're connected with your horse, but your horse isn't connected to you.
Right.
So I realized then that even though I basically knew how to do it, I had never taught it specifically.
It's
And
hard,
so
isn't it?
yeah, and then I set about figuring out, how do you get connection? And a lot of it is like you get connection with people. You know, like we're talking, we have eye contact,
Yes.
we've got very similar energies.
Yes.
But with horses often don't give people eye contact. Their energy can be quite different. They're a different species. You know, they're a prey animal. They don't understand us. They speak a very different language. How do you connect with that?
Yeah.
And then a lot of people think, well, you know, I care for him and I feed him and I give him treats and I love on him. And horses go, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's not what's important to horses.
That's how my
So
wife
that
got me.
relationship.
She cooked for me and she got me through my stomach. But and then the love grew from there.
Luckily.
Yep.
But you still have to do a lot of the right things, you know. So what is going to get a horse attracted to you? And one of the biggest things is energy. And most of us, and I know you're into energy, and most humans are very unaware of the energy that they project. And when you're around horses are hypersensitive to that. And if it's a low energy horse and you're a high energy person or vice versa, you've immediately got to disconnect. So it kind of starts from there, is really learning how to manage yourself and read the horse and know then what that horse needs and how you need to moderate your energy accordingly. And then you need to be able to have good leadership skills and communication skills.
Oh my gosh.
So, you know, easy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I really set about trying to explain, and that's what I teach.
There's a commercial for Charles Schwab, the investment company, where everyone's talking in a room and this person enters the room and everyone becomes silent. When Charles Schwab speaks, everyone listens. And that's a sense of leadership that people struggle.
Yeah.
You know, they walk into a room and it's not a movie set. You know, everyone ignores you and the horse is going to ignore you. And people say, you know, they see what I do with a horse and they say, gosh, I wish I could do that. And I say, well, how good are you with your spouse, parents, siblings, or the guy behind the counter at 7-Eleven? And they inevitably say, oh, not that good. So like you say, start with your own species and get good with that, because you're moving into a completely new territory. But once you get there and get it, to me, it seems so easy. It's because, you know, no, go ahead.
I agree. And, you know, so much of it is, I think has to do with people being 100% present, because most people are not. They're in the future, they're on their phones, they're distracted by all kinds of things, and the horse is 100% present. And so they're reading every little nuance, and we're oblivious to most of it.
Right.
So I think that's one of the big parts, is we have to be 100% present. And then horses can connect to that.
Do you think it's a generational thing? And please, I'm older than you. You know that. You're still a young chick. But but these young people who are getting into horses who only know texting or maybe the phones, Zoom meetings as they learned in school, horses don't live by that. They live by the nuances, that reading of energy, the pheromones, the hormones that we're secreting out, everything. And
Mhm.
I try to tell people you have to get away from that one-dimensional or two-dimensional communication, that this is three-dimensional. And the only way you can get there is exactly what you say. Be present. Be absolutely present. So help
Yeah,
me.
I think
How
it's
do you teach?
definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, but quite honestly, I've been teaching people for 30 years in the horse industry.
Sure.
And before that, I was teaching people in the skincare industry. And there are, as you know, lots of different types of personalities. And there are some that are way easier, way more distractible than others, that
Yes.
have trouble staying present. They
Yes.
have very short attention spans. And so I think, the age of the cell phone and the computer and all the things that we have now at our fingertips, I think that enhances our ability to be distracted. But I still believe there's some people who are more inclined to be that way than others. But it's kind of like learning meditation. I could never sit still. I
Right.
had to learn how to do that,
Right.
and then also learn that through horses too. It's in some ways it's a kind of a meditation where you have to just forget everything else that's around you. And
Wow. That's really good. It is a meditation. It's
Mhm,
and it's dissociating yourself from all the troubles of the world. I
mhm,
mean, we here in America are having this horrible time um, on politics, and when you go to the barn, um, I walk into the stall, and the first horse I come to, everything's gone. It's just completely. I'm
mhm.
only present with a horse, and
Yep.
it grounds you. It makes you feel so much better.
Yep. Yep. I agree. And I want to talk a little bit about that as well in a not so positive way, because I mean, most of my customers are women, and most people who want to do natural horsemanship and who love horses that way and are very compassionate tend to be more women. You're like one of the loners out there.
Yeah.
So I think for women, um, a lot of the time they go, oh, my horse is my savior. If I'm upset, then I'll go to the barn and my horse calms me and all that kind of thing. But
Right.
then sometimes I go, wow, your poor horse.
Yes.
Like,
It's not your
if I go
therapist.
to the barn, I want to bring my best, you
Yes.
know. Okay, if
Absolutely.
you're going to sit there and not do anything, but if you want to have your horse collaborate with you, be
Yep.
enthusiastic about doing something with you, then you have to bring your best. And
Absolutely.
being a better leader, being a better communicator, being a better rider, are all the things that I strive to do. And I've got a busy life, but when I'm there with my horses, I try to be 100% with them and I compartmentalize the other things.
Yeah.
When I was going through my divorce, there were times that were very difficult. And if I could not shake that feeling, I did not train my horses. I
Yeah.
would just go give them some cookies and then, give them the day off. But funnily enough, I could teach.
That was a job.
I
Well,
guess.
I don't mean that as a negative thing,
Yeah.
but that
No,
was
no.
like robotic thing. But when I get in front of a person or a horse or any living thing, it can't be robotic. You have
No.
to first ask, who am I talking to? You have to understand what their problem is. So whenever I
Mhm.
go into a stall, and even though I don't say the words, it's the first thing I say is, "Hey, how you doing?"
Mhm.
And I give them
Yeah.
a chance to say, "It's a man, it's a vet. My life is ending as I know it." And I'm like,
All right.
"Okay, okay, at least I know where I stand with you." Can we
Well, there's another word that people are using more and more now, called mindfulness. And I think that's something that people can connect to probably easier than saying, to be 100% present. It's to really be
yeah.
mindful and about, you
Mhm.
know, who am I talking to, and why am I doing this, and why am I talking about this, and where's my energy at, and am I really connecting with that person or that horse
Yeah.
instead of just being me? I have a mentor who died some years ago now, and he used to say, why be yourself when you can be someone so much better? And that's, what I strive to do, is like just keep improving who I am and what I do at every level that I can. But I'm not normal, I mean, I'm pretty manic and pretty driven about these kinds of things. And I'm lucky to be able to inspire other people to do the same and have, the relationship they've always wanted with their horse.
Last week, I went to a new client's farm, and she's one tough cookie. I mean, you wouldn't want to meet her in a dark alley, but she's also a sheriff's deputy, tattooed, just I dare you type attitude, but she's nice. I'm in the barn, so we're all talking horse. And she says, you're not going to be able to get along with my horses. I hope you brought your, drugs. And the mare down there, forget about it. I mean, go ahead and try, but if you can't do it, I understand. I looked at the mare, and the mare says, come on down. I like you. Oh, the feet never moved. The mouth is open. I'm doing my thing. And the poor woman started crying. And until your students see that it can be done, like you say, hey, I can get your horse to be the horse that you're looking for, in no time at all. And I can walk up to a horse I've never seen before. And the horse says, yeah, climb on in my mouth and do this thing. It's almost unbelievable for people. It's almost unbelievable. And that's a big hurdle. A lot of people will automatically say, and they're prejudiced, oh, it's a thoroughbred. That's it. We're done. It's a thoroughbred. Oh my goodness, it's a chestnut mare. And so they come in with those preconceived ideas, and layered on top of that, they have the argument they have with their spouse. And then on top of that, what's going on in the world, and all that energy comes into the stall, and the horse is trying to climb out the back window.
Yeah.
So how do you tell somebody? How do you pull their fuse? How do you deflate their, and get them down? That's a secret that, Linda, if you could tell me that one, because I can do it, but it's tough to teach.
Well, again, in my curriculum, in the connection module, it tells you how to do that. And I have a behavior profile. Back in the Parelli days, I created something called horsenality, and I can't use that anymore. I can talk about it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I thought, where were the weaknesses in that? And it was more of a tactical approach that was needed. So people could talk about their horses. Oh, it's an introvert, an extrovert, it's right brain, it's left brain. And they understood the horse and stopped blaming it so much, but then they didn't necessarily use the strategies that you need to get on with that.
Right.
They'd go, oh, my horse is an introvert, therefore, he can't be in an arena. He needs to be on a trail. It's like, no. How do you get your horse to love being in the arena with you?
Right.
Yep. So I developed a more tactical model, and I call it behavior fix. And I've made it very simple, where basically I say that there are two axes. The vertical axis is mover or stopper. Is your horse a mover or a stopper? Well, everybody knows. They go, mover, never stands still. Oh, it's a stopper, it never moves, it doesn't want to go.
Right.
Instead of using words like crazy or lazy, right? You just go mover or stopper. And then on the other axis, we've got pushy or tense. And again, people know, they go, oh yeah, my horse is really pushy, or they know the horse is tense. So now I tell them, well, how do you adapt your approach? If you're a mover and your horse is a stopper, how do you modify your energy so that your horse can see you instead of being afraid of you?
Right.
And so I show them, and I do some little demonstrations of, if it's a mover, you move. If it's a stopper, then you slow down a lot and you're more hesitant. And then horses will go, I don't know why, but suddenly I'm attracted to you, you know?
Yeah.
And then if they're pushy, then you need to be a little bit pushy with them. But if they're tense, you need to be more reserved and back off a little bit. And I find that if I just teach people that, and then I say, now go get your horses and just think about that. Don't change anything yet. Just think
Mhm.
about it. And
Yeah.
they immediately change. Because once you know that and you read the horse, you're different. And most people don't read the horse. They just march into the stall, march into the paddock.
Agenda
And as soon
driven.
as yeah, and it's like you were talking about going into that stall and going, "Hey, how are you doing?"
Mhm.
You know, you're actually meeting that horse at its level instead of just barging into its room and saying, you know, "I'm here to do your teeth and
Sure.
shut up and open your mouth," you know.
Yep.
So I think that a lot of people have been taught how to ride or basic handling, but they've never been taught how to read a horse and read its energy and really connect with it, because that's the key is I want to get to know you,
Mhm.
and that's how I'm going to connect. But if I don't care to know you, there's going to be no connection. So anyway, that's the first step that I do.
That what you just said is so important. And I've used this with my colleagues, which I've got to be honest, not that I'm ever dishonest,
Yeah.
um, but I'm kind of angry at my profession. And I'll say to these people, well, what did you get out of bed for? I mean, was it to see how many pills you could sell or treatments you could do? Or did you get out of bed wanting to go to a barn to make connections? And that's everything. If I'll walk into a farm on a barn, a horse, connect with them, find out, oh, this horse doesn't need any work. I'm happy. The horse is happy. Um, I just, it's the connections we get out of bed for.
Yeah.
It's
But I
not a,
think you're a little bit like me too. You've got a slightly bigger mission than just going and treating horses, because your whole horses advocate mission, I mean, that's a huge mission, and it's way more than, you know, than the veterinary job or the dental job. And a lot of people don't have that. So I think you and I are very lucky. You know, we wake up every morning, it's like, oh, I'm going to make a difference today,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
whereas a lot of people don't have that. And then especially people with horses, they go, oh, my horse is my stress relief, or, you know, this is my getaway, or I just love having horses. And then there's this big gap between what they want and what the horse understands it needs to do in that relationship. So anyway, I just think the mission is a big piece of it.
I think when people find out that all of their problems they've had most of their life, or I should say the resistance that they've found in their lives, was actually caused by themselves. It's not somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when they find out just how much control they have over themselves and how little they have over everything else in life, and they let go, um, it actually stresses some relationships to a point where they dissolve, or it builds a relationship to the point where, you know, a nuclear bomb could go off and that relationship would never die. And I like doing that with a horse. I like because in my thing is a one and done. You know, I'm a one, and then I'll see you in 6 months, sometimes a year, sometimes 3 years. And yours is an everyday thing, and in constant, never-ending improvement in a skill to do something in a training arena. So we diverge there, but I think at the root, 90 some odd percent of what we do starts there, and is nothing else can be built on top of that until that's solid. At the base of your heart, the connection
Yeah.
is everything, because from connection you can get relaxation, and then you get this two-way communication, goes to responsiveness, and then you build confidence. And that's so important. And then on confidence, gosh, you can do anything if you're
Yeah.
patient. I love
Yeah.
that. I
Those
love,
first four,
I just
those
said,
first four are critical.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just said connection, and you got that, everything else will fall into place. But Right. There are steps, and I see that you have it well structured, and I love that idea.
Thank you.
No, seriously, but a lot of it a veterinarian would never have to do. But I think number 8, agility. For a professional who's working on a horse, we want zero agility. We want you to stop.
Stand still.
Stand still. I have these guys, these minis that rear up and like, I'm bigger than you. And I'm like, no, you're not. Yes, I am. No, you're not. Hey, how does that feel? Oh, that feels better. Oh, wow, we could be friends now. But it's allowing that conversation to occur. And I think so many people either are afraid to start a conversation, whether it's between two people or a person and anything. They're either afraid or they just don't know how. And once you figure out that you can say something to a horse, dog, rabbit, butterfly, tree, whatever, and then all of a sudden that happens, that's tremendous.
But you know what the key is? The key is listening.
Shut up.
Because, you know, like if you think about with horses, a lot of people just tell horses what to do this, do that, you know, but we never ask a horse a question and then listen to its answer. No. So that's also something that I teach, you know, when it comes to connection, is that, you know, in my modules that you can see there, there's 10 modules.
Yep.
And I have a question in each module that elicits the conversation between me and the horse.
Yep.
So the question for number 1, connection, is, are you with me? So you ask the horse, are you with me? And the horse goes, no, I'm with my herd over there, or I'm spooking at that thing over there, or I'd rather be in the barn, or I'm with the grass, you know? And so now,
I've seen that.
Listen to that. Yep. Yeah. So you go, yeah, you're not with me. Now, what do I need to do to get you with me? But I asked you if you're with me, not just said, you're with me, suck it up, right? And so then number 2, relaxation, is, can I give you a loose rein or a loose rope? Because if I can't do that, then you're obviously leaving and you're not relaxed and you can't stand still. Yeah. Number 3, responsiveness, is, will you respond to light aids? Yeah. A lot of horses will respond, but it's like pushing a car with 4 flat tires. Yes. You know, drag a horse instead of it, you know, leading nice and lightly with you, or it lays against your leg or against the bit. So they don't understand light aids. Then, you know, the rest of them go, are you spooky? That's the confidence one. Are you spooky about me, about my tools, about whatever's in the bushes, the jumps, the arena, the judges, the, you know, whatever it is. Number 5 is, can I regulate your gait? A lot of horses are like, no, I either am gone or I don't go. Yep. Then number 6 is, are you flexible? Some horses are stiff as a board, you know, rigid out of defense, or, you know, they're not going to let you in. And then harmony is, you know, I'm doing this, how about you? And that's where I think about it as leading the dance.
Yes.
So if I do this, do you go with me?
Yep.
Or do I have to make you dance? And I want you to follow me in the dance.
I'm sorry. I know you want to go more, but I got to stop right there.
No, that's enough.
Dancing is all about relationships. Dancing is like, there's got to be a leader, but there's got to be a willing partner. And yeah, you have to train. It takes time, and most people aren't going to get this first time out, but it is a dance. It really is.
Well, you being a man, you probably, unless your wife takes over the lead, but most men never get to feel what it's like to follow a leader in the dance. But as a woman, I have for many, many years, and I don't know how to dance. I'm not a good dancer, but if the leader is a good dancer, I can look like a really good dancer. And it's fun because I try to match the energy and the movements and the feeling. And that's what horses do. I find the same thing, that horses start to love that. It's like a game, you know, it's like, can I keep up with you and follow that lead without you having to tell me every step, you know, what to do. So I know for horses, it's fun once they get to that point.
Dancing, I took dancing lessons,
Oh, what kind?
waltz and foxtrot and cha-cha-cha all through high school. And
Ah.
it saved me a couple of times from falling on my butt in a stall. I know how to pick up my feet. But it's more than the technique of where you place your feet. It's knowing that when you do the dance, the person you're dancing with you, is connected, which we're right back down to number one again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Horses
And
are
that's what's magical about it. You know, when you get that, I mean, with a person, obviously it's magical, but when you get that with a horse, when a horse, like connection is beyond obedience, harmony is beyond obedience. Obedience is a factor, it has to be there in the beginning, but then it transcends that because
right.
it's now just a feeling and a, well, connection and harmony, which is in the end what we really want.
That word obedience often conjures up difficulties in a lot of people. I had a beautiful childhood. I'm not worried about that, but I know there's so many people have had discipline through their life. And you can't have a life without rules, boundaries, and limitations. It's just, that's what it takes. No, you cannot walk over the top of me. You're 1,200 pounds. I'm not, right?
Yeah.
So we have limits, and we have to do that. But we have to be fair in defining those. And I feel like, seeing that you brought up this man thing, and there are a lot of men involved with horses, but not so much on the East Coast. This is more of a woman's world here. But it is really gender. It's not specific to genders. It is more specific to those who are fair and those who are leaders. And most men are not good leaders, and they think leading requires dominance or strong discipline. And while that works in the short term, it doesn't work in a long-term relationship. No. So, and I think everybody listening to this is going to say, well, that's obvious. Yet I still see women as well as men go in and try to strong arm. And the other thing is, if it's not strong arming physically, it's strong arming mentally. Stand still. It's going to be okay. He's not going to hurt you. It'll be all right. Just stand still. It'll be over soon. I'll promise you, I'll give you a treat when you're done. And I turn to these people and I say, stop. Try this on for size. And I've literally done this. I'm not fabricating this. I'll say to them, stop being a coach and start being a cheerleader. And I still use the word cheerleader, even though I've had one or two people say, I'm not going to put on a skirt and pom-poms. It's so sexist. So let's find another word for cheerleading. But how about an encourager? So I say to the person, try this. Thank you. The two words that if everyone would just use that ad nauseum, it would make a difference. You're doing great. I'm so proud of you. You're the best. And so they do this from the outside the stall. Well, you're so best. You're my favorite. You're the guy. You're the best. You're doing so well. And all of a sudden, the horse just drops all that resistance. And the person out there literally starts to cry again because they had no idea that their words were affecting the horse. Their energy.
Well, it affects their energy. Exactly. It affects their energy.
Energy's everything.
So it's like it's what you bring, you know. Do you have an energy that is connectable? Because some people, they don't. You don't want to go near them, you know, and other people you're attracted to. It's like, oh, I want to talk to that person, or I want to hang around them more. Well, why is that? It's because you can connect to their energy in some way. Horse is the same, you know. But military, I think, is initially the problem when it comes to horsemanship and horse training, because it used to be very regimented, you know, when horses were used for warfare and for farming and things like that, where obedience was everything. But the world has changed a lot since then, you know, for horses. And now there are pets in our hobbies, and they're there for our sports and our enjoyment. And sometimes, you know, that high obedience training gets in the way of connection. But also on the other side of things, women have a lot of trouble with leadership because they've had bad examples of leadership in their life.
Sure.
Like you were talking about, you know, with men, that they think being a bully is how to lead. And I say to women, you know, bullying is not leadership.
Never.
Like Gandhi was a leader.
And it occurs within a gender too. I've seen dominant females that are bullying the horse.
Oh, yeah.
And I see meek and mild women around horses that they themselves are somewhat of a bully. And the horse bullies right on top of the woman, and she's in a hospital. You know, it goes both ways. And I think a lot of people, and I'm not using an agenda here, I think a lot of people get overfaced with the horse that they've got. Their skills just aren't there yet. Sometimes.
I think you're right. And I also think the awe factor gets in the way. It's like, oh, it's my horse, the awe factor. It's like, oh, it's my horse, it's my dream. You know, and I don't want him to hate me. And especially, you know, women can think like that. And something that I often use is an analogy with a car. And I tell people, you let your horses do things you would never let your car do.
Yeah.
Never. You wouldn't let it change lanes, change speed, attack other cars, run through a red light, run over you. You know, you would. People are like, oh, but I said, but you're letting your horses do that.
Define the rules, define the boundaries. And
that's not about bullying. That's like, it's just manners and knowing how to have appropriate behavior.
There's a word, anarchy. And when you have anarchy, there's no leadership. And when you have no leadership, somebody gets hurt. Either the horse gets hurt mentally, usually, or the person gets hurt, usually physically. You cannot live in anarchy. You have to have your rules.
That's why I have a job.
You know, I wrote a book a long time ago, and it's very thin. It fits in your back pocket, called The 10 Irrefutable Laws of Horsemanship. And I try to describe the basic personalities based on what Hippocrates said way back in Greece times. And what you and I what we know is that every horse are blends of these. It can be stronger in some, weaker in others, but we're a blend of that, depending on who we're in front of. And then I come up with something very interesting that you've already said, and it just brought it to me. I stole this from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Seek first to understand. And then the next rule is then to be understood. And if people would just take that into the stall, and I don't see, I see everyone else. Now, these grooms, that's their job. They have a different relationship with these horses. And I say, amigo, por favor, because they're usually Spanish. And they can go in and get the horse that I can't catch. And I don't have time to do that connection. But once we get that physical connection started, it seems like everything can fall from there. But I see so many people who don't even have the connection going into a stall without any physical connection. And I say to myself, this person's going to die one day. You know, connection is physical and mental. And I have to be careful because the people who see me see what I can do, and I know that they can't do it. Get a lead rope and a halter on first. Don't go out there in a paddock and think that you can bond with your horse. There are baby steps people have to take.
For sure.
And people who come to you probably are beyond those baby steps. They've been trying for a long time, and you just need to nudge them in the right direction. But what do you say to all these people who are just starting out with horses? I just bought a horse. It's my favorite. I love my horse. This is great. What are some of your basic fundamentals, like irrefutable, don't cross it, do this? Do you have anything like that?
Yes, I do. And it's mainly in the connection module because you need to start with connection and learn how to connect with a horse. And part of connection is setting some boundaries,
Yeah.
right? So don't run over me, stay back, stay
Mhm.
with me, don't lose your attention from me. You start with that, and all of a sudden you've got a horse's ears and eyes looking at you.
Yeah.
So I start, like people that know nothing, I start with that. And one of my instructors in Georgia works a lot with in therapeutic. I don't think you can say handicap riding, but I've said that
Yeah,
for so
right,
long, I
right.
don't want to say
I
anymore.
know.
But therapeutic riding,
Yeah.
and she has these kids that are, quite affected by autism or behavioral problems and things like that. And
Trauma in their life. Yeah.
she teaches the kids my program. And she said the results are amazing because they start to learn how to communicate with a horse instead of just tell
Yeah.
it what to do or pet it or just sit on it. She
Yeah.
said, I've got them where they can get horses to do all kinds of things on the ground.
Yeah.
And so to me, it doesn't matter if you're an Olympian or you're just starting out with horses, you need to know how to connect with a horse.
Sure.
That's it. Simple as that. So
But
start in module 1. That's where we start with all of them.
draw that out though, because I've seen people are absolutely afraid of their horse. They own the horse, they're responsible for its upkeep, and yet they're so scared of the horse. It's luckily the horse is usually like, yeah, well, whatever, but they, how do you help people over their fear of a horse?
Do you know what the opposite of fear is?
Stupid. No, that's brave. Sorry, I get the two confused. No, tell me.
Bossy.
That's that's really scared. That's how I look at it. Am I right?
Yeah. So like when I have people that are really afraid, I
Yeah.
mean, the horse is bossing them around. And if I tell them, well, you have to be more confident, that doesn't work. How can you just be more confident? So
Yeah.
I get them starting to boss the horse around. Back up over there, go over there, put your nose on this, come here,
Yeah.
stop, go back. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, they feel in control
Yeah.
and a lot of that fear goes away. And then, of course, you have to teach them how to do that when they're on the horse's back. But a lot of the time, it's because they're a victim and they're not calling the shots. So leadership has to come. It's like horses don't make good decisions for us.
No.
We
Right.
went and bought the horse. The horse didn't come looking for us. And it's
Yeah.
our job to give them a good life. And that means for them to feel safe with us, to
Yeah.
feel happy, for them to have a good life where they don't dread us. They see us coming to the barn or the stall or
Yeah.
the paddock and they go, oh no, not you. I
Yes.
want my
I
horse.
see that.
She is,
Yeah.
and your leadership skills, I'd say that's what I teach more than anything is that mindfulness, the ability to ask questions, to read horses, to start conversations that really
Yeah.
develop connection, and then to have some skills, like for instance, in responsiveness, that's basically the obedience module, is very simple things like you need 3 ways to tell a horse to go backwards. You need 3 ways to get him to go forwards. You need 3 ways to turn him. You need 3 ways to, whatever. And
Mhm.
most people have 1 way or no way. It's just rest. And so if that one didn't work, then what would you do?
Yeah.
So I give them basic skills like that so that they have these different ways that they can orchestrate horses, for want of a better word. And then they get more confident because now they've got some skills. Horses start to go, oh, you're worth listening to now. And then it all builds from there.
That's just drawing that out a little bit. Let's say somebody learns 3 ways to move a horse, but one way is so much better than the other 2. And they say, okay, well, that works for me. And then they come across another horse and they try that and it doesn't work. Maybe
Exactly.
2 or number 3 is better. And one of the things that you and I are blessed with is the number of horses that we've seen and the different personalities of them all. And we can shift gears better than any truck driver going down the road when we're between this horse and that horse. Like I've asked people all the time, how do you make a man wear a pink fluffy shirt to a cocktail party? And they just look at me and they're like, And then then I say, make it their idea. And they go, oh. And so their horses, you got to make it their idea. Whereas other horses, you got to give them a list. Okay, I want you to go here and then there and then there. And then you got the other one who says, hey, over here, pay attention. And once these people realize that they have to shift their techniques, it's important that they know the 3 different ways, which I think is a really cool way of doing it. So they have tools in their toolkit that they can reach in for.
And
but they
some
have
horses
to learn.
you better have 5 ways. Some horses you better have 10 ways because they've been around the block. And luckily, you know, they're not the most common horses that we see, but the ones that are really difficult, you just need one more strategy than the horse.
Yep. Can I shift gears a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, you're going to say yes, because I'm the leader here.
Yeah.
No. I know that you know that I want to get into this. One of the things that you've emphasized, and we both agreed on, is we need to listen. But the horse needs to listen too. And there are a lot of horses that you go up to and they're glassy-eyed. They're shut down. There's nothing reaching them. And some of those horses can be dangerous or scary. And no, you student, don't go into that stall. You're not ready for that horse yet. But there are things that I've discovered along the way that I've brought to a lot of farms where a lot of these horses are just so shut down from what they eat, let alone that they've been beaten all their life. I've had horses that have been come off the kill truck because nobody can handle them. And I'll walk into the stall and they look at me and they say, oh, you're listening to me. And they're excellent. They're wonderful to work on because somebody's listening to them. But it goes the other way. If I say, hey, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here for, let's do this, whatever. And the horse like, shut up. Just shut up. I'm not listening. And in fact, you're evil. I've met people who look just like you, and I'm going to try to kill you.
Yep.
And I find that we can train ourselves a lot, but we also have to fix the horse. And my pet peeve, the brain is being inflamed by so many things that we feed these horses that I think if you have a horse that's difficult, go back to the baseline and get all the inflammation out of there. Make sure he's not painful. The gastric ulcers are gone. The sore feet are gone. The sore back is gone. Because you're not going to reach me if I've got a headache, right? And it's the same idea. So training and connection is important, but there are physical blocks for some of these horses that just no. And we have to help them over those. And that takes another whole chapter in getting them right. So you know how I feel about how grain, I think, is inflaming so many horses. And they're struggling to find the right nutrients. So I always throw that into a conversation about horsemanship because you have to get the horse right before they're even willing to start a conversation. I know, because you and I, I'm sure, find some of these horses and we're like, oh, no, that one's a felon.
Yeah, and some of it is the way they're treated. But it's funny because a few days ago I had some dental surgery. And so I couldn't eat anything but soup for 2 days. And I'm telling you, yesterday I had enough soup, and I'm not an irritable person.
Yes.
But I was on edge because I was just hungry. And I thought, this is so interesting because I see horses like that.
Yes.
And in fact, when I met you and you talked about protein and soy as a source of protein, and you talked about how some horses are just ravenous. They're so hungry, so aggressive around food, and that one of the reasons could be is that they're starved, like they're protein starved. They can be getting all this food, but nothing's meeting that particular need. That was me yesterday. I was like, I need something, and I couldn't talk to anybody because all I could think about was food. And I was irritated because I couldn't find the food that would satisfy, that I could chew. And I wasn't going to have another bloody soup,
Yeah. Sure.
So I've seen that with horses that can be really irritable because they have some form of malnutrition or inflammation, like you've said, or digestive upset, and they can't be themselves. So I think as a holistic approach, it's all part and parcel of it.
Yes. Yeah, I've been advancing my knowledge on food, and I found that there's a sugar called fructose, and we all know fructose. It's that sweet sugar fruit that can drive what's called foraging behavior. It drives this horse to want to find food, who's constantly, it's higher and higher on their mind. It also makes them more lethargic, so they don't have that energy to move forward. And there are techniques that I'm learning now where we can get all the fructose away from the horse. But what's the interesting fact is horses and you and I can make our own fructose, which is interesting because we only thought fruit could make fructose. But animals make fructose all the time. And one of the things that makes fructose more than anything is eating high glycemic sugars, such as grains, potatoes, rice, cookies, crackers, things like that. And so some of these horses are getting a high load of fructose, driving this foraging behavior, which makes them incessantly hungry and not focused. And you take that away and let that calm down. And in like 4 to 7 days, now you've got a horse that you can connect with a whole lot better. And so I think it's part of it.
I do too. And I don't think it's just taking that away. It's what do you replace it with?
Absolutely.
You know, it was so interesting that I had that that experience yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I really felt, you know, when some people go, my horse is just fixated on the grass and he's just manic about food. And it's like,
Yeah.
he's really needing something, you know, there's something missing from that diet. And, you know, as conscientious horse people and horse lovers, it's like parents with kids, we've got to find out what's the root of that problem. And, you know, your appetite for learning is like mine. When there's something that we don't understand, it's like, we're going to find out, we're going to like research up the yin yang to try and find the solution for that, you know. And you never stop talking to people. I mean, I would never have known about soy had you and I not had that conversation. And then I was reading about it all on your website and I went, you know what? I see some things that are where my horse is deficient in protein and I did not know.
Yeah, something about a tail on a horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, his main tail was thin and then his soles got thin. And it's funny because, you know, a farrier one time said to me, yeah, your horse has always had thin soles. It's like, well, that would have been nice to hear earlier, you know. But since I've been feeding him soy, which is about a year now, I mean, he's like a different horse. He's grown a thick mane and tail. His feet are amazing. All the abscesses have gone. And what's really interesting is that normally at this time of year, because he lives out on, you know, I've got 5 acres in the front paddock, normally he's a bit fat at this time of year, and he's not.
Regulating their appetite.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's, you know, he's self-regulating it. I'm not having to pull him off the grass, which I used to have to do.
Sure.
Now he looks amazing.
That's wonderful. Great.
There's a lot to it.
Great to hear. Connection. It's everything. It's what I get out of bed for. It's why I drive, you know, 4 hours up to your neck of the woods and spend a day working and then drive 4 hours back or spend the night. It's been driving me around this world for a long time. But sometimes conversations can be difficult. People have conversation difficulties with people. This morning, I went to get a haircut and I just text the guy and say, what time do you want me? He says 10 o'clock. I get there and he forgot to put me in his calendar. So he had some people stacked up that were waiting, didn't have an appointment. And he's like all flustered. And I said, Nick, it's only a haircut. Don't worry about it. I'll come back another day. They couldn't believe that I could do that, that I'm willing to walk away from something. And I said, fine. I went out to my car, I sat in there. I was, you know, doing some texting. And the guy who I I allowed to get his hair cut, he still had to wait. He came out and thanked me. And then I found out because Nick texted me, he says, he put $10 on my haircut. So when I return, it's $10 less. And when it comes to a horse, horses are so used to people not listening or being, you know what's, there's a word for it, if you're anatomy, not being nice. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of horses have given up on people. They're just like, no. And
I've seen them all over the world.
And
we're actually lucky they're as tolerant as they are.
Well, they saw what we did to cattle. So I think the first thing people have to do, and the thing that I put in my mind is, and I think I told you this, Robin Williams stuck his hand up in the middle of a rap and he says, talk to the hand. And that just means the horse has a story. But then he says, call waiting. He flips his hand around, talk to the hand, call waiting, meaning let's start a new conversation. I'm not that man. I'm not that vet. I'm not that person. I want to start a new conversation with you. Are you up for it? And most horses like,
that's different.
Yeah. And you got their attention. And you can't communicate till you have their attention, right?
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people listening to this who say, okay, what's that tidbit? What's that thing that I need to know because I'm struggling with my horse here? And I try to give them that. What kind of tidbits would you have for these people? They just have a backyard horse. They're never going to train. They're never going to go to any level of competition. They just want their horse to start to connect with them.
I think you've just said something that's a very important part. And that is that people think they can have horses and not learn anything. Or they can just watch some YouTube clips and go, oh, I'll just do this technique or that little, trick, and then my horse will be fine. But it's not that at all. Horses are not easy. And if you didn't grow up with horses and have grandpa or papa helping you along the way, then, a lot of people don't get their horses until they're middle age. They're like, oh, I've always wanted a horse and now I've got one. You got to learn.
Yeah.
I was lucky to go to school for horses for a couple of years in Singapore. And then, later on in my 30s, when I was studying with Pat, and then the other mentors in my life, I studied hard to become good at what I do. It's like you. How are you going to do that without an education? And to really have success with horses, you can't just do tips and tricks off of YouTube. It's not going to work.
No.
You need to learn how to be a leader. You need to understand how to read horses. You need to understand how to communicate with them. And that's just on the ground. Now, what about when you get on them?
Yeah.
And, where I said that we're lucky that, horses are as tolerant as they are, because most people should be dead. I should be dead, knowing
how many times
what I did, what I used to do with the little knowledge that I had. It's like there, but for the grace of God, I don't know how I survived it. But now I'm so aware of everything, and I know horses, and I know how to connect with them, and I know how to help them trust people and understand people. And then, what I'm really doing is teaching people how to do that. And it's not a quick tip.
No.
We can say, yes, you need to learn how to connect with a horse. Where are you going to learn that? That's why, I spent 3 years writing this new curriculum. You need a pathway to follow. And then you can, be halfway good with horses. But most people think, well, I'll just get a horse, and how hard can this be? Saddle up, get on, kick him to go, pull him to stop. If you can catch him. And then, if the horse is hard to catch, or he's got some so-called behavioral problems, people blame the horse. Oh, he's hard to catch. Oh, I often tell this story, so if you came home one night and your wife ran out the back door, would you say, geez, she's hard to catch? Or would you go, I wonder what's wrong with the relationship, But we tend to blame the creature. It's like, oh, he's ornery, he's lazy. Lazy, what if that was unmotivated? What do you need to do to motivate that horse to even want to be with you and go around the arena one more time? With happy feet instead of like, oh, no, not another circle, you know? So I really see that it's a two-way street. And as leaders, we have to be benevolent leaders and invite horses into this dance with us, you know?
Love that.
That's the way I think about it. And it doesn't matter what discipline you do, what breed of horse it is, it does not matter.
I agree.
What matters is the relationship. And who do you have to become that when you walk into the paddock or into the barn, the horse goes, oh, there she is, or there he is. I couldn't wait till you shut up. Instead of they're like, oh God, here they come.
And
Somebody cover.
And the caveat is you don't look like a bucket of grain.
Yeah. And even if you did, that's short-lived.
Yeah.
It's like they love you as long as you got a carrot and a cookie. And then as soon as they've got that, they're like, all right, you're no good anymore.
Yeah.
You've got to be better than the cookie. You've got to be better than the grass.
Yes.
You know?
That's leadership.
Yeah.
That's leadership.
I keep trying to find a better word for leadership because I know some people can have trouble with that. But I just keep trying to, you know, explain what a good leader is instead of confuse it with being a bully or just barking orders at a horse. That's not what you do. It's a conversation, you know, where you evolve it and you lead them down a certain path or direction. And, you know, then you see, does the horse want to go with you or not? And if he doesn't, you got to figure out why. And then you got to change it, not just get out a bigger stick.
I've had trouble with that word leadership too. It means so many things to so many people and they're all confused. They don't understand it. I think leadership is saying to your men in a war, charge, and the men either say, hell no, you're not a leader, or we're right with you.
Yeah.
How does that happen? How do you say to a horse, let's go down this path on this trail where we've never been before? How does the horse trust you?
Mm-hmm. I mean, trust comes because you are who you say you are. You're predictable, you're consistent, right?
People
you can't be one, you know, like I often joke with when I do clinics and things, and I joke with people and I say, you know, who do you think your horse has as a leader? It's Sybil, you know, with 45 different personalities. You're different in the barn, you're different in the arena, you're different when you catch the horse, you're different when you groom it, you're different when you feed it, you're different when you train it, you're different in the arena compared to the trail. It's like, this is Sybil. It's inconsistent. My dog just fell off the chair. It's inconsistent, and the horse is like, I have no idea it's going to show up today. So you have to be that consistent force in your horse's life where no matter what else is going on, the horse goes, but thank God I'm with you.
Yes.
You're the one I can believe in and trust in, and, you know, you're going to keep me safe, and you're not suddenly going to turn and, you know, beat me or you know, abandon me, you know, abandon the leadership.
Well said.
Yeah. And I also, you know, ask people, you know, what's your definition of a leader? And I like to use flip charts a lot, you know, when I'm presenting. And you can fill like 3 pages. And I go, no wonder it's hard. You got to be all of these things. But let me give you one word. The leader is the one with the plan. And most horses have more plans than you. You don't have a plan. You just want to go and have fun. And the horse goes, well, I've got other plans. And now who's in the lead, right?
And people forget they're part of the herd.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Who's going to be the leader of the herd?
Yeah, exactly.
And leaders aren't a diploma on your wall. Leaders is earned. Leadership is earned. And sometimes you really have to work hard to get that leadership.
Yeah.
I've
heard it said too that leadership is what shows up around you, because your environment will reflect you, you know, so
that is,
my horse is my report card.
Yeah. And we also have to be careful because no offense to crime gangs, but there are leaders of crime gangs out there, and they surround themselves with a lot of people. uh, you can become a leader if you kill off anybody who opposes you. You know,
Last man standing.
that's not the leadership we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, leadership is earned. It comes through with transparency, respect, um,
Trust.
giving dignity, but defining the rules and boundaries and saying, this is what we're going for. This is the plan. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now for all of you who've made it this far in the podcast, you now realize why cars became so, popular. You just get in there, turn the key, you tell it to go, and you can drive it off a cliff and it will,
Yeah.
Horses, this is Linda Parelli's words, are hard.
Yeah, they are.
It takes work. It takes time.
Yeah.
And
Who do you have to be? Who do you have to be for a horse to love you and want to follow you and be in harmony with you? It's a personal journey, you know?
that is the most profound thing that people don't understand. It has nothing to do with the horse. It is all about you. Get yourself right, and the horses will come to you. Mostly.
They know. They read it. They're a good judge of character.
Yeah, they are. I've had some people like the sheriff who says, that horse likes you. That's what she said. That horse doesn't stand for anybody. It doesn't stand for the fair. It has to be drugs. But my horse likes you. You're right.
Well, if you ask somebody, have you ever seen things from the horse's point of view and looked at how people approach you? It's like they just barge into your bedroom, put a halter on and drag you out, Where
It's no
was the
different than
connection?
it's no different than raising children. A lot of these people who get horses have never had children, and they don't understand the nuances of each individual and what that takes and what skills the mother has to have to get Johnny over there to do something that Bobby, you just, hey, Bobby, clean up your room. Okay, Mom. Johnny, clean up your room. Oh, well, okay, I got other things to do, and doesn't.
Yeah, why should I?
Yeah, why should I?
And you have to learn how to connect with those that are different. Same thing with horses. Like people, they get one horse, they've had it for years, and they finally, everything's clicking, it's wonderful. And then they lose that horse and they get another horse that is the opposite.
Yep.
And now they're like, oh my goodness, my other horse was so easy. This one is so difficult. It's like they expect all horses to be the same.
They're
But
not.
like you said, motorbikes or cars, they're living, thinking, breathing, plotting animals,
With thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it hard.
Yeah. But fascinating.
And fun. Challenging.
Yeah. It's what I live for.
We should swap roles. You should go out and meet some of the horses that I see, and I'll do some of the horses you see.
Yeah, what you wish for.
It'd be
But
kind
it's
of
the
fun.
same thing. It's the same thing. How do we connect with that horse before we try to do anything? You know?
Some of my colleagues, you got to connect with the horse and say, gee, I'm sorry, but I'm about to stick a very sharp needle in you. And that takes some skill.
Yep.
Skill.
And it's something that the owners should be preparing the horse for too.
Do you think there's a responsibility there?
I think so. I think so. How can I prepare my horse for that?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. What else do you want to talk about?
Oh, wow. How long have we been going? It's been a pretty good discussion.
Yeah, I think we have. And your video freezes and then it comes back. It's not just you. It's on my end. You freeze, I can hear you, and then everything goes black and then it comes back. So maybe we should end this.
Yeah, maybe. You haven't frozen except for one little moment when you just talked about freezing.
Yeah.
But otherwise it's been really good.
Beautiful.
But I think, if I go like, what is one message I would really love to get across to people is to become passionate about learning. you know,
regardless.
learn about what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about horses, you should be learning everything you can about that horse, you know, and how to be better for that horse. And a lot of people have a terrible history of learning. You know, they're damaged learners, they're not confident learners. And, you know, it doesn't have to be like school was. There's a way for this to be really fascinating, especially if it's what you're passionate about.
With a side note, learn how to think and not accept everything at face value. Everything you and I talked about today, really internalize it, chew on it, and ask yourself, how's what you're doing working for you? And do we have something that might be different? And if it's, you said it in the beginning, if it's working for you, okay. But if it's not working for you, find a teacher who's passionate, and go from there, because there's a lot of information out there.
Yeah, I agree. And then when it comes to the horse, let's never forget that the horse was fine till we showed up. So how can we make it a better life for them? You know, Charles de Comfy, I don't know if you know his name. He's a very quite famous Hungarian dressage trainer and modern master, and he's in California. And in his big Hungarian accent, I heard him say this one time. He said, when it comes to horses, either you are improving him or you are killing him. So it's like, how can we constantly be the best thing that showed up in that horse's life at every level?
I love
and
that.
Sometimes we're not, and you know, I'm going to die trying. If I'm not good enough in this area, then I'm going to learn how to be better, because it means that much to me. Yeah,
I think it's a blessing. I think it's a blessing we found each other.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's hard to find people that think this way. And I'm praying that this type of information will get out and passed around, and people show interest in happylife.com and follow your instruction path, because the world needs you. They need teachers like you, your students who become teachers, ambassadors for what you believe in. I think that's really important. And I'm going to try to get as many people off in your direction as you can handle, because it has to. Yeah, well,
it make it easy to understand. You know, it's like what you're doing with the Horses Advocate. You're breaking things down into very important, simple kernels of knowledge. And that's what we need, you know. And I always talk about, like, if a blonde can do it, anybody can do it. So I can make things simple.
Oh, keep doing it. Don't give up.
I will. You too. I'll be seeing you soon. I've got to make an appointment for my horses.
Okay.
But thank you very much for having me on your podcast. And
it's my honor
really
to have you on.
It's our mission to change the world and make a difference. And, you know, every little bit helps. Thank you very much.
You seem to be missing the point. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, thank you. Oh, no, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, no problem. And
I will see you soon.
I look forward to it. Hey, everyone. Doc T here. Thank you for listening to my content. Would you do me a huge favor? Would you please subscribe, comment, like, thumbs up, and give a star review? However it's presented to you, I want you to do that. There's two reasons. The first, of course, is to improve this product. This way I know what you like, what you don't like, what I can improve upon, what topics you want me to cover. But more importantly, it's also going to help others find me. And by doing that, you are now engaged in this mission of helping horses thrive in a human world. By you helping, we can reach others. And that I would be so grateful for. And remember, go to thehorsesadvocate.com for updates on this information. Thehorsesadvocate.com. And again, thank you so much for being here. Doc T out.